Let's get ready to rumble!
I want to big up Thomas Hearns, who was just inducted into the Hall of Fame. Very deservedly so as well. I just heard about a British light heavyweight named Tony Jeffries, who won a bronze in the 2008 Olympics. And his career might well be over. He just had an operation to cure a perennial hand injury, but the surgery was unsuccessful and his career could well be over, which is bad news if it is true, because he hasn't really got a chance to show what he can do. The clock is ticking on Lucien Bute. He has 6 months, I think, from when the fight with Carl Froch ended to operate his rematch clause in his contract with Carl Froch. Oh, shit. 6 months in boxing time is not that long to get your confidence back after such a beatdown. I remember this fighter quite well. Fabrice Benichou, the French fighter, 46 years of age, is in a psychiatric care unit after 3 suicide attempts in 4 days, according to reports in France. The former IBF super bantamweight champion retired in 1988 before embarking on an unsuccessful comeback in 2005. Boxing is quite a simple game. Like Chad Dawson called out Andre Ward. He said it'd come down to 168. Ward accepted, and the fight's made. Simple shit. You know? No egos, no Floyd Manny Pacquiao bullshit, you know? The fight is just being made. None of this Nonito Donaire shit. Oh, I think Rigondeaux is boring. I don't want to fight him because he's boring. Well, hold on. Dawson and Ward are both in the pound-for-pound rankings. That's undisputable. Yeah? And on occasion, a lot of people have alluded to them not being exciting fighters. What do you conclude from that? They're not worried about people saying that the styles won't gel and that the styles will clash and make for a boring fight. No. They're fighting for that pound-for-pound status, which is what fighters should be doing. I lost a lot of respect for Ricky Hatton when he said that he didn't need to fight Junior Witter, who had the WBC belt. I believe Hatton had the WBA belt, you know, at light welter. Ricky was saying shit like, oh, he can't fill out a stadium. His style's too boring. No, that's not for you to decide. Your job is to fight the toughest competition, the highest ranked fighter and contenders and champions, you know? I mean, how many times in the UK do we have one man who has a WBA belt and the other man has a WBC belt? Not many. It doesn't happen much. So when that happens, both fighters in principle should be breaking their metaphorical backs to be making that match happen, you know? And Mike Tyson once said he doesn't like when other fighters say they won't fight a certain fighter for whatever reasons. He said he doesn't like when they say that because we're all trying to make a payday, you know? And it's wrong. You don't get to decide who you're going to fight because of who you like. It doesn't work like that. This ain't a dating site. I want to belatedly big up Teofilo Stevenson, the great amateur who claimed 3 Olympic heavyweight gold medals. He died recently at the age of 60 from heart disease. He is widely regarded as the finest man to ever don a vest in the amateur game. He claimed his first medal in 1972 in Munich. He repeated the feat in Montreal 4 years later and did the same in Moscow in 1980. His medal haul may have been even greater had Cuba not boycotted the games in 1984 and 1988. The latter being the year when he opted to retire. Stevenson is one of the 3 boxers, alongside Hungarian Lazio Pap and fellow countryman Felix Savon, who can claim to have won a hat-trick full of gold medals at the Olympics. And let's not forget that he won the World Amateur Championships in 1974, 1978 and 1986. Stevenson was born on March the 29th, 1952 to a Jamaican family of modest means. He grew up in Las Tunas province in eastern Cuba. He had his first fight at the age of 14 and won his first international title 2 years later at the Central American and Caribbean Championships. He had a terrific left-hand jab and a devastating right hand. He beat the likes of Dwayne Bubbick, John Tate, Alex Garcia, and Tyrrell Biggs. The most asked question about his career is how he would have fared against Muhammad Ali. Stevenson turned his back on a $5 million payday from American promoters to turn professional and fight Ali. He opted for the respect of his Cuban people. He often cited the concept of professional sport to be undesirable. Joe Frazier's gym in North Broad Street in Philadelphia. North Broad Street, that must be where Beanie Siegel got his nickname. Anyway, the gym has been named in the list of 11 of America's most endangered historic places for 2012. The gym closed its doors in March 2008, and today a discount furniture store occupies the space where the legendary fighter used to train himself and others. Students at the nearby Temple University will submit a nomination form to the Philadelphia Register at Historic Places to protect the gym from adverse alterations and demolition. Here's a few cases to validate why Lucien Boutte may opt to take up the clause in his contract for a rematch against Carl Froch. The first example is Joe Louis versus Max Schmeling. Max Schmeling knocked out Joe in 12 rounds. Joe came back to smash Schmeling in 1 round. What about Willie Pep versus Sandy Sadler? Pep outboxed Sadler in a rematch after he was previously demolished in 4 rounds. That was for the world featherweight title. Terry Norris versus Simon Brown. In the first match, Simon Brown dropped Terry Norris in the first round, staggering him all around the ring before knocking him out in 4. Norris came back and used his boxing skills to outpoint Simon Brown in the subsequent rematch. What about Miguel Cotto versus Antonio Margarito? Now, in my opinion, we have to really question if Margarito didn't have his hands bricked up in the first match, as he destroyed Cotto in the later rounds after being outboxed earlier. Cotto, however, managed to extract some form of revenge, busting up Margarito's face last year and stopping him in 8 or 9 rounds. Rocky Graziano versus Tony Zell. Tony Zell, I remember seeing this fight. Not live, but obviously a replayed version. Zell planted a right into Graziano's body and followed up with a hook to the chin to knock him out. Yep, it was a devastating knockout. Then Rocky in a rematch returned the favor and blasted Zell out in 6. Floyd Patterson versus Ingemar Johansson. Johansson in the first fight basically dribbled Patterson like a basketball all around the ring and was just, had his way with him and stopped him early. Floyd came back to land one of the most devastating left hooks to finish a heavyweight title fight ever in a rematch, and he stopped him again after that. Bobby Chacon versus Ruben Olivares. Olivares blazed through Chacon in 1973 and 1975, but Bobby would not be denied. He beat his old nemesis in 10 rounds in 1977. Archie Moore versus Jimmy Bivens. Jimmy Bivens battered Archie into a 6-round defeat in a one-sided contest in 1945. They were to meet 4 more times after this, Archie gaining revenge in a rematch and retaining supremacy over the final three. Ruben Olivares versus Art Hafey. The Mexican great Olivares had to get off the canvas to win a 1974 10-round decision. In this fight, he avenged the earlier 5th-round defeat to the same opponent. Ike Williams versus Bob Montgomery. After Bob Montgomery knocked out Williams in 12, Williams came back with a vengeance and some serious bad intentions, and he blasted Bob out in 6. And he still wasn't satisfied. He said, I didn't get to him as good as I wanted to. I wanted to murder him. Antonio Tarver. Not a good look, fam. Not a good look. Can't really say no more on that. You know? But he did what he felt he had to do to get over. And he came up short. I just want to gauge one thing before I leave. And it's in the wake of the Victor Ortiz-Cito Lopez fight. Ortiz got his jaw busted. And he quit because he didn't want to do further injury to himself. Now, isn't it funny? Beg all these old fighters like Winky Wright and Mosley and Jones to retire because you're going to get injured. You're going to get injured. But yet, when a guy like Ortiz is fighting a hungry young lion, in what was a tough battle, let's face it, it was a very tough battle. He gets his jaw busted and he quits. And everybody is saying he has no heart. He should have carried on. This is what I'm saying about the inconsistency that I hear in a lot of you guys. You don't let your brain engage and absorb what's really happening around you before your mouth does the yapping. If Victor Ortiz felt he was going to get hurt in a way that could endanger his future, he should quit. Yeah, he should quit the fight. I don't get it. Saying he hasn't got any heart. Well, he fought hard enough to try and win the fight. And he does have heart. He just doesn't have as much heart as other fighters do. Yeah, what you're saying doesn't really make any sense. Just like some fighters have thicker skulls than others. They're able to deal with punches better than a fighter with a thinner skull. Some people have more of a threshold for pain, so they'll cope better. That's just all it is. Saying a guy has no heart after watching a battle like that, I think it's a little disrespectful. It's not like he got hit by some cuffing little punch in the first 2 rounds and gave up. No. He was getting hit hard. For 9 rounds, was it? I remember a similar thing happening to Vitaly Klitschko in the first fight with Chris Bird, when he'd done his shoulder in, and I think he quit in the 11th or at the end of the 10th, and there was 2 rounds to go. But he couldn't deal with the pain. And at that time, there was no YouTube boxing community. They would have slayed him as well. Larry Merchant, in particular, really slayed him. And to paraphrase Larry, he was more or less saying that Vitaly didn't realize the magnitude of the fight he was in. It was a world heavyweight title fight, and you're supposed to leave it all in the ring. And maybe Vitaly wasn't aware of the historical implications. And the thing is, a lot of us scream about PEDs and that the usage of PEDs is endangering the fighters who don't take them. So that means when you're saying that older fighters should retire and that the usage of PEDs is endangering the fighters who don't take them, that suggests to me that you're looking out for the fighters' welfare. Well, that's all and good. But surely the welfare of boxers is, for the most part, their own responsibility. If they're in such pain that they feel they have to quit, then they have to quit. Yeah? And I heard a lot of people citing that when Muhammad Ali fought Ken Norton, he fought for, 10 rounds with a broken jaw? Well, I haven't got the video here, but I heard Ali speaking, yeah? The guy who was interviewing him was trying to big him up for his bravery, for staying in there so long with a broken jaw. Ali said to the guy, "I didn't know my jaw was broken. If I knew my jaw was broken, I would have quit." An interviewer looked at him like, "Are you crazy? What do you mean you would have quit?" Ali said, "I would have quit. Are you crazy? Do you think I'm going to do permanent damage to myself for a boxing match?" And he was deadly serious. Yeah. Did Victor go out like a punk against Mayweather? Sure he did. Did he lose concentration in the Peterson fight? Sure he did. Did he capitulate when he couldn't get it all his own way against Maidana? Sure he did. Sure he did. Does he have the same testicular fortitude as some of the legends who have graced the ring? Sure he doesn't. But have you taken the time to think about the war that he was involved with against Andre Berto to win the welterweight title? Was he floored twice in that fight? Was he a coward on that night there? And you see, you got to start thinking a little deep about the psyche of boxing. When boxers are talking to ES News, they're saying, "Yeah, I've trained real hard, I've got a new nutritionist, and I'm feeling strong." They have to say that. They can't say, "Oh, my body's really battered up, I'm really in fear of my life, of what's going to happen to me on Saturday." Yeah? But sometimes it's a case that they really are in fear of their life. Their bodies are breaking down. He had a war with Berto, a 12-round war. He was dropped heavily twice and hit with big shots. Yeah? Let's not forget, regardless of how it went down, Money Mayweather knocked him out. He was crawling on his knees, knocked out. You have to factor in how much toll that's taken on Victor's psyche. So maybe 2 fights ago, he might have had that broken jaw and fought through it. But the trauma of the last 2 fights that his body and his mind has went through, for 2 different reasons. The Berto fight was euphoria. The Mayweather fight was sheer disappointment. And maybe we might not see him in the ring again. And maybe he will be in the ring again. Maybe he'll get the hunger back. You see, we don't see all the possible scenarios what could play out. It may not even come down to hunger why Victor goes back in the ring. It might just be down to finances. Calling him a coward is a bit extreme, in my opinion. I mean, most of the people listening to this particular video would have come from a country with westernized principles and values. Don't we fight wars to preserve our so-called freedom of movement and speech? So surely the boxer who you think is over the hill should be able to play his trade without you mothering him, basically. He knows when his body's had enough. He knows when he needs to quit. Nobody stops to think that maybe Winky Wright has a mortgage to pay off, alimony, child support. He needs to send his kids through college. He needs just to survive every day like we do. He needed to come back to the ring. Where else is Winky Wright going to get $100,000 or $50,000 purse? Where else can he do that? If he waits until he's 55, it's too late. So while he can still train to at least a fringe world-class fighter's capabilities, to fight at a decent level, he has to do it. Jersey Joe Walcott had to keep his physique in pristine condition until he was 37 years of age. And he went through some really tough times. Go look it up. And when he got his shot against Ezra Charles, he came in chiseled, ready, and he took his chance. And he won the title. That title win enabled him to have decent jobs in athletic commissions in boxing. He was able to referee fights. He was able to use his fame and notoriety as a means to finance his life and his family's life. You have to think about it, man. You have to think about it. Maybe these old fighters don't want to beg nobody for a handout. I see people always writing in comments, oh, you can just get a job commentating. You think it's always as easy as that? Not everything is just black and white how you perceive it to be. Until you walk in the next man's shoes, then you're in no position to judge what they do and why they do it. I mean, is Floyd Mayweather really a coward in regards to the Manny Pacquiao fight when he says he won't fight him until he agrees to VADA or USADA testing him before the fight? Is he really a coward? Shouldn't he have the option of saying, okay, I can beat him whether he's juiced up or not? Or I think that I'm going to be putting my life in danger. Larry Holmes decided to chime in on the whole debate, saying that Floyd should just fight the guy, whether he's on drugs or not. Well, Larry, time does tend to rose-color a lot of things. But I remember when you didn't want to fight Pinklon Thomas, when Pinklon was looking like possibly the toughest heavyweight in the world. Just after he decisioned Tim Witherspoon, just after he knocked out Weaver, and he was looking good, and you didn't want to fight him. And I never heard you say, I'm not going to fight him because I feel I will be in danger in my life because he's on PEDs. No, you didn't want to fight him because you thought it might be just too tough a fight for you at the time. So that's a load of bullshit. Should I call you a coward for that? No, I'm not going to call you a coward for that. You know what I mean? Not after seeing the Ken Norton fight, the Carl the Truth Williams fight, the Ernie Shavers fight, the Ronaldo Snipes fight. No, I'm not going to do that. Roy Jones, he jumped into the argument. Floyd doesn't want no part of Manny. Well, you wasn't exactly breaking your back to fight Darius Michalczewski, a fight that most of us thought that he'd win. But nevertheless, Michalczewski was a long-term champion with a lot of defenses to his credit. And we can look at Canelo. He was looking to fight Ortiz if he got through the fight, and he didn't. I wonder if Canelo or Bob Arum are going to even look at the possibility of fighting Alessandro Lara. No, they're going to sidestep it like it's not even a viable fight. But the YouTube boxing community, for the most part, we think it is. And that's why a lot of boxing fans would not pay for a Canelo Alvarez pay-per-view fight, unless it was an undercard fight on a Pacquiao-Bradley bill or something like that. Is it cowardice on Canelo's part? I wouldn't say cowardice, but it's definitely more calculated boxing than doing the right thing and taking on the toughest contenders. It definitely is. Like I was talking about Eddie Chambers last week, fighters like Eddie. Alessandro Lara doesn't have the machine behind him. The only machine he has behind him, and we're not getting paid, is the internet community, the YouTube boxing community. Where is machine? Where is machine? We're not going to stand for the 2012 Murderers Row, where fighters are getting sidestepped because they haven't sprayed their hair gold. They haven't got big fan bases and shit. No. Because in my opinion, Alessandro Lara could be an opponent for Alvarez. They could have a 24/7. They could profile where Lara came up, his family values, what makes him tick, and they could build up his character. But they're choosing not to do that. They're choosing not to do that because you will find that a lot of Cubans do have very welcoming personalities. We understand that you have to sell the fight, but Lara's a human being. I'm sure he has a history. I'm sure he has a family, a story, a community that you can trace back and research and find some good things to fill the time of the 24/7, and it's only right for what the guy does in the ring, you know? Like, to me, forget the reputation of boxing, because the people at the top are just lying in their pockets. If it carries on like this, where we're talking, well, you can't sell fights, well, maybe more fighters should kick over tripods and cameras like Hey and Chisora, because they're not leading contenders when it comes to rankings in the heavyweight division. They're not the top leading contenders. But now they're taking all the column inches away from the Klitschko's. Do like the rappers and their fake rap beefs, or like TNA Wrestling or WWE, and choreograph some shit so they can't ignore you. So if you have to pay a couple of grand fine, you're going to rake it back on the gate receipts, the various television network subscriptions. So that's all good to me. I've never seen none of these major publications or networks ever come out and say to people like Ricky Hatton and Nonito Donaire that, yo, it's not up to you to tell fighters how to fight, and it's not up to you to suggest that they don't deserve a payday. Why don't they ever say shit like that? They have vested interests in certain fighters and certain cliques and camps and shit like that. It's fucked up. They don't care about which pugilist is a purist, you know, and preserving the values of the noble art. They don't give a shit about none of that. It's about time some of you guys start realizing that. They don't give a shit about PEDs and about all the plastic titles out there. They don't care about that, as long as they can fool the average Joe. You think they really care about PEDs? No, they don't. No, they don't. And in a way, I can't blame them for that, because if you look at the bigger war on drugs, the whole picture, like PEDs in sports, personal drug use for pleasure, for want of a better way of phrasing that, the drugs in the drugstore, the chemists, you know, the government always talk about a war on drugs, but there is no war on drugs. There never was a war on drugs. There can't be a war on drugs. There never will be a war on drugs. Drugs are very easy to process and manufacture. Most drugs don't require expensive laboratories to develop them. And the profit margins, it just reminds me of G Money in New Jack City. And the bitches, oh, the bitches. It's just a no-brainer. It's too easy. So after overviewing the bigger picture, why would I believe boxing is so sacred? Why would I believe boxing is exempt from the same pitfalls that drugs bring to your hood and my hood? Why would I believe that the television networks and the alphabet boys are really going to wage this big war against PEDs in the sport of boxing? Do you think they're going to waste their time on a nonsensical, phony, fake war that can't be won? Nope. All they're going to do is come out in their tuxedos, give you a few feel-good sound bites. Oh, this is disgraceful. Something has to be done about this. But at the same time, you never see them questioning the fighters who duck out of post-fight doping tests, the big-name fighters who never submit themselves to the mercy of the recognized doping agencies. So they're full of it. It's just like the war on terror. What country is that? I've never seen no country named Terror. Who is Terror, Mr. Bush? Who is he? Now, if you said Bin Laden, or Saddam Hussein, or the guy in Iran, North Korea, then we'd have a definitive target of who you're gunning for. But leaving it the way they left it and worded it, there's a lot of grey areas. But that's politics. Let's say the percentage of fighters who are juicing up is 60%. Let's just say 60. And right now, me saying 60%, none of you are going to laugh at me and say, you're ridiculous, you're paranoid. None of you are going to laugh. That's a valid estimate or guess. Let's say 60% for the last, 10, 15 years. How much fighters out of that 60% have really gave some of their opponents the business and fucked up their careers because they was juiced up on the sauce? How do we even know that some of the ring fatalities have not been a result of just that? I mean, Vitaly Klitschko, he was taking the PEDs when he was kickboxing. Am I to believe that he only took it the one time and then he saw the error of his ways and joined the Boy Scouts and started giving little kids cookies? Oh no, I'm just not that naive. I'm a cynical old bastard. Oh no. How much times did Margarito brick up? How much times did Shane Mosley use? Roy Jones? James Toney? Look what Golden Boy did to Varda. Basically, they threw them under the bus because they couldn't control how Varda was dispensing the information and the findings they was coming up with. So if I had to answer my own question, would I watch boxing knowing that 60% of the combatants are juiced up, or even more? Yeah, I think I would. But I would rather they just come out and say, yeah, this is what it is. Then I could just get on with it, you know? And it wouldn't be a revelation all the time when we hear some big names just got caught. And that's why I like Nigel Collins from the Boxing News, because he's just a straight talker, you know? He's a straight talker. You can see he's not one of them guys who panders to the editor saying, make sure you're politically correct, we don't want to lose readers. But he's so good at what he does, he can afford to be a bit of a maverick and just tell the truth. You know, before I started reading about his views on PEDs, he's one of the few people who was reading the situation just like I was. Just like I was. You know? Just like he said. The only way you can guarantee that you're not going to get shortchanged by your opponent using PEDs is if you take them. It's at that stage. So I think I'm going to end the video by asking the question that I answered already. If all the major governing bodies said, look, we're just going to legalize PEDs because we can't really stop it or control it, would you still watch boxing? Or would you need a little time to come to terms with it? Or would you just walk away? I'd love to hear your answers. Peace out.